pour croissance, résilience et optimisation. Je suis Anita Sonda, la responsable communication et relations extérieures de la BIDC et j'aurai le plaisir d'assurer la modération de cette session. Dans un contexte régional marqué par de nombreux défis, mais aussi un fort potentiel de transformation, le Conseil des gouverneurs de la BIDC, en sa 24e session ordinaire en avril dernier, a adopté un nouveau plan stratégique pour la BIDC appelé Stratégie GRO pour la période 2026-2030. Ce plan ambitionne d'accélérer une croissance durable, renforcer la résilience de nos économies et optimiser l'impact de nos interventions dans la sous-région. Le webinaire de ce jour, organisé pour vous présenter cette nouvelle feuille de route, se veut également une invitation à la collaboration entre les acteurs engagés dans le développement de notre région. Avant de poursuivre, je rappelle à tous nos participants qu'un système de traduction simultanée est disponible afin de garantir une participation fluide et inclusive en français et en anglais. Nous vous invitons donc à sélectionner la langue de votre choix via les paramètres de la plateforme. Sans plus tarder, c'est avec un grand plaisir que je vous invite à écouter l'allocution de celui qui incarne cette vision stratégique pour la BIDC et pour la région ouest africaine. J'ai l'honneur de donner la parole à Dr. George Adjikoum Donkor, président de la Banque d'investissement et de développement de la CEDEAO BIDC et de son conseil d'administration. Monsieur le Président, vous avez la parole. Monsieur le Président, vous pouvez y aller, s'il vous plaît.
Distinguished partners, participants, it is a great pleasure for me to welcome you to this webinar dedicated to the presentation of the ECOWAS Bank for Investment Development's GRO Strategy, our roadmap for the 2026-2030 period. As you are very much aware, West Africa is currently at a defining moment in its history. Our region faces complex challenges, economic volatility, demographic pressures, energy insecurity, and climate vulnerabilities. But it also presents rich in extraordinary experiences. It is within this context that EBID has developed the GRO strategy, reflecting our ambition to contribute more strongly, effectively, and sustainably to the economic transformation of our region. Before presenting the key pillars of the GRO strategy, allow me to briefly reflect on the journey we have undertaken and to take stock of Strategy 2025, which has brought us to this important milestone. Over the past 5 years, the bank's operations have experienced a remarkable acceleration. We have committed over 5.4 billion across $5.4 billion US across more than 300 projects, achieved $4 billion US in approvals, 2.4 billion in disbursement, and mobilized a record 2.8 billion from our partners. These results were delivered in a particularly challenging environment marked by broader closures, rising inflation, and tightening international financial conditions. Yet, in the face of these constraints, EBID did not merely meet its target, it surpassed nearly all the objectives set under its Strategy 2025. Building on these strong foundations, the bank is now opening a new chapter, the GRO Strategy 2026-2030, a renewed strategic direction to build a stronger, more resilient, and more integrated West Africa, and to sustainably amplify our impact in the service of our member states and their populations. The GRO strategy is built around 3 core pillars. Number 1, growth. That is to support transformative investment in high impact sectors such as infrastructure, energy, agriculture, and the private sector. 2, resilience. To strengthen the capacity of our member state to withstand economic, climate, and social shocks. And 3, optimization. To enhance the efficiency of our interventions, maximize our impact, and align our operations with the highest ESG standards. Through this strategy, we clearly reaffirm our commitment as a bank to placing impact at the heart of our financing by supporting job creation, empowering youth and women, fostering SME development, and advancing regional integration. We also aim to mobilize greater resources and deepen partnerships to scale our contribution to the Sustainable Development Goals and the ECOWAS Vision 2050. However, the success of this ambition does not depend on EBID alone. It relies heavily on our collective ability to act together. Governments, financial institutions, the private sector, technical and financial partners, and the media have a key role to play in this regard. Today's webinar is therefore an invitation to gain a deeper understanding of our vision and strategic priorities. It is also to identify concrete opportunities for collaboration, and finally also to co-create innovative solutions to address the challenges facing our region. I would like to encourage you to follow the upcoming presentation closely and to engage actively in the discussions. Your insights, ideas, and commitments are essential to making this strategy a shared success. Together, we have the opportunity to build a West Africa that is more dynamic, more resilient, and more prosperous. I thank you all for your kind attention, and I wish all of you very productive discussions. Thank you for your kind attention. Merci pour votre attention. Muito obrigado. God bless you all.
Merci, Monsieur le Président, pour cette allocution inspirante et pour cette vision claire et ambitieuse de l'avenir de la BIDC et de notre région. Nous allons à présent entrer dans le cœur de ce webinaire avec la présentation détaillée de la stratégie GRO, de ses orientations et de ses priorités opérationnelles. Je rappelle à tous nos participants de ne pas hésiter à inscrire leurs questions au niveau de la section Q&A tout au long de la présentation. Maintenant, j'invite Dr Joseph Assenso, chef de la division études et recherches macroéconomiques à la BIDC, à prendre la parole pour nous en présenter les principaux axes. Dr Assenso, vous avez la parole.
Thank you very much, Madam Anita. Good morning once again, ladies and gentlemen. Over the next 10 to 15 minutes, what I seek to do is to introduce the bank's new strategic plan, which is dubbed the GRO Strategy, which spans 2026 to 2030. But before I do that, please permit me to take you through some of the achievements that the previous strategic plan, which terminated in 2025, achieved. So this strategic plan, which spanned 2021 to 2025, which was also dubbed Strategy 2025, is made up of 61 combined targets, of which 48 are qualitative and 13 are quantitative. At the end of the period, that is between 2021 and 2025, we had achieved about 85.7% of the qualitative targets and about 99.8%, almost 100% of the quantitative targets, giving a combined achievement rate of about 88.7%. Some of the achievements over the period are as follows. We exceeded our target for project approvals, new project approvals, by 61%. That is, we achieved 161%. we exceeded our commitment targets by about 31%. We exceeded our resource mobilization target by about 35%. We exceeded our resource mobilization target by our loan disbursement target by about 58%. We exceeded our loan book target by 5%, and we exceeded our balance sheet target by about 3%. So this is the basis upon which the new strategic plan was developed and captured. Some of the development impact indicators over the period are as follows. Loan disbursements. We injected about 1.65 billion UA, which is more than 2.2 billion US dollars into the West African economy over the 5-year period. Jobs created came to about 170,000. We were involved in the development or construction of about 1,543 kilometers of roads in the sub-region. We were involved in the development of about 522 megawatts of power plants in the sub-region. By way of railway, we were involved in about 393 kilometers of rail development in the sub-region. And we created jobs directly and indirectly for about 56,000 women over the period. So the GRO Strategy, 2026 to 2030. GRO is an acronym which simply means growth, resilience, and optimization, as we heard the President allude to. The theme for the strategic plan is growth through resilience and optimization. With this document and with this strategy, what we are seeking to do is to balance expansion, that is business expansion and economic expansion in our sub-region, with sustainability for EBID as a bank and for our member states, and efficiency for EBID and for our clients. So it's a balancing act which involves expansion, sustainability, and efficiency. The objectives for the strategic plan are as follows. 1, accelerate sustainable growth. 2, embed ESG and resilience across operations. 3, optimize resources, processes, and operations. And 4, create enduring stakeholder value. The strategic response of the GRO Strategy are as follows. To scale investments, that is, be involved in high impact, high ticket investments without neglecting some of our regular clientele who may be doing the 5 to 10 million tickets. Strengthen institutional capacity, that is, build EBID up in such a way that it is able to deploy at speed and at scale, and also help our clientele to also strengthen their capacity so that as we advance lines of credit to them, they are able to do exactly what they said they would do and then be able to repay the money as they grow their business. And the last one is to build resilience, ensure that we build ourselves in such a way that we are able to withstand any of the known and unknown shocks which have beset the sub-region and the entire world over the past 6 years. Anchoring pillars and areas of intervention. The strategic plan is anchored on 15 of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, that is goals 1 to 13, 15, and 17. It is also anchored on 3 out of the 5 pillars of the ECOWAS Vision 2050 document. As I said earlier, GRO simply means growth, resilience, and optimization. And these 3 represent the pillars upon which the strategic plan was built and which will guide our interventions going forward. What do we seek to achieve in the growth pillar? We seek to invest in high impact areas of our member states, pro-growth sectors, to ensure that not only are we encouraging growth in our member states, but we would also be encouraging the growth of our balance sheet as a business. 2, to maintain private sector focus. The private sector is said to be the engine of growth, and it is the #1 employer in every economy globally. So there is need for us to focus a lot more resources on the private sector to ensure that they are able to bring employment multipliers in the economies to more or less assimilate the teeming youth who leave the universities, our senior high schools, and technical institutions every year without jobs. 3, SME financing focus to ensure that we bring value to the over 90% SMEs in the sub-region. That is to say, over 90% of all businesses in the sub-region fall within the category of SMEs, and the bank is ready to focus on them going forward. Resilience, to ensure that we make our ESG principles central to our operations, environmental, social, and governance. This is a way to go because this is where the world is going. Most of the partners that we engage with are lending sustainability financing to us and other partners. There is a need for us to align ourselves to this framework going forward to ensure that we stay competitive. Beyond this, we are going to strengthen our risk frameworks because the private sector thrust comes with a lot of risk, and we need to be able to strengthen our risk frameworks to adapt to the new dynamic of the business. We are going to invest no less than 41% of new commitments over the five-year period to ESG projects, of which no less than 25% will go for social projects in education, water, healthcare, rural electrification, and what have you, with no less than 15% going to renewable energy projects. Optimization. We are going to deploy our balance sheet in such a way that we bring value to the business and to our stakeholders as well. We will try to move at speed and with agility. We need to ensure that we reduce the turnaround time for our processes, and also to ensure operational optimization, reduce the time it takes between project or loan application to disbursement as much as possible. By this, we are going to ensure digital transformation, cost efficiency, and funding diversification. The areas of intervention are as follows: energy, transport, health, water, finance, agriculture, education, and industry. Overall, we are seeking to grow the loan book by at least 72%, the balance sheet by at least 64%, to bring NPLs down over the 5-year period to 3% or below, which will help in our quest to achieve investment grade rating. And we are seeking to achieve investment grade rating for the first time in the history of the bank, which is BBB- Fitch and Baa3 Moody's. So this represents a snapshot of what we seek to achieve over the next 5-year period. Thank you very much.
Merci, Dr. Assenso, pour cette présentation claire et riche en enseignements sur la stratégie GRO et ses orientations. Nous allons à présent ouvrir la session des questions-réponses qui nous permettra d'approfondir certains aspects et échanger avec les participants. Je rappelle à tous que nous pouvons toujours poser les questions via la rubrique Q&A. Et donc, sans plus tarder, je vais donc regarder au niveau des rubriques, au niveau du chat, et voir s'il y a des questions qui sont posées. Donc, nous sommes également en live sur les réseaux sociaux. Et donc, sur les réseaux sociaux, il y a une question qui a été posée sur Facebook et qui est la suivante. Docteur Ascenso, quelle est la principale innovation de la stratégie GRO par rapport aux stratégies précédentes mises en œuvre par la BIDC? Docteur Ascenso, vous avez entendu la question?
Okay, sorry. Sorry, Madam Anita, I heard you. The key thing, as we outlined earlier on, is embedding ESG in our operations. ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance. What we have realized over the years is that our countries do not experience inclusive growth. Many sectors of the economy expand, but then poverty is still on the increase. That is something that we discovered in our WADO, West African Development Outlook, for this year, which will be published very soon. The countries in 2025, for example, achieved remarkable growth with an average of about 6% growth, inflation coming down, exchange rate strengthening, and so on and so forth. But we have also noticed that poverty has not declined in commensurate terms. So by ensuring that we put social interventions as a central element of our strategic plan, we are looking at themes like women inclusion, youth inclusion, and so on and so forth, to ensure that growth impacts positively on everyone, not just on the few, but also to ensure that areas like agriculture and industry are also brought to the fore to be able to multiply economic gain for everybody. Environment is very critical because it speaks to sustainability. We need to ensure that we do not waste away the very natural resources that have been bequeathed onto us by nature. Some of these are irreplaceable. Once you use them, they never come back. We need to be conscious of environmental issues, even as we expand, to ensure that generations beyond us are able to also enjoy the things that we have enjoyed over the period. Thank you very much.
Merci, Dr. Ascenso. Donc, nous avons une autre question, pardon. Donc, what is the strategy of the bank to cope with the emerging global financial world order, the decline in the supremacy of the dollar and the emergence of other currencies? How is the bank preparing to mitigate currency risks?
Thank you very much. The bank operates in three major currencies. Even though we have a reference currency, which is the UA, which is equivalent to the SDR of the IMF. We borrow and lend in the USD. We borrow and lend in the Euro. We borrow and lend in CFA. And by way of currency risk, whatever facility we take in any of these reference currencies, we lend same to our clients. So we borrow in dollars, we lend in dollars. So that more or less protects us against currency risk. I don't think that we can say for certain that the dollar is on the decline. If you have taken a very close look at what has happened this year, the dollar has strengthened compared to last year when the dollar weakened against the various currencies. We do not have a reference currency beyond the dollar as we speak, and the global world order in terms of currency will take a bit of time to get rid of the dollar if that would even happen. So, like I said, whether the dollar goes down or goes up, we are not overly fixated on that because we operate in three currencies, and that is how we hedge our risk by way of currency. Thank you.
Merci, Dr. Assenso. Donc, nous allons continuer avec les questions. La suivante. Quels sont les indicateurs qui permettent d'apprécier la réalisation des données qualitatives de 2025? Docteur Assenso, est-ce que la question est claire ou est-ce que vous souhaitez que la personne précise en disant données qualitatives de 2025?
Yes.
Est-ce que la personne mentionne la stratégie 2025 ou en tout cas, il y a besoin d'être plus précis sur ce dernier point-là ou est-ce que ça vous convient?
No, it's fine. So we set ourselves some targets, qualitative and quantitative, and we determined what the qualitative data should be and what they should, like at the beginning, the baseline was established and what they should be at the end of the period. For example, we said we're going to invest in STEM education, that is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. It wasn't just about value, but it was also about the number of projects that we set ourselves to achieve. At the end of the period, that was one of our biggest drawbacks. We could not invest so much in STEM education as we planned. That is qualitative. In terms of rural electrification, we gave ourselves a number of targets in terms of value and in terms of volume. Those are quantitative, so they are very measurable. But if you look at something like ensuring that we improve efficiency in the bank, that is by way of bringing CBS online, core banking software, to ensure that we reduce the level of manual operations. That is qualitative in nature. So we ask ourselves, have we been able to achieve that target? If no, what is the percentage of achievement? So that is how we measure our qualitative, targets. Another example is saying that we want to achieve a certain level of credit rating. We are currently B2. If we say we want to achieve B1 in 5 years' time, and we fail to achieve it, that is more or less qualitative. So that is how we measure our qualitative targets over the period. Thank you.
Merci, Dr. Assenso. Donc, nous avons une autre question de Monsieur Bokoum Ousmane qui demande: la banque se donne pour ambition d'accélérer ses décaissements, mais de mon point de vue, cela ne dépend pas seulement de la banque, mais aussi de ses clients, en parenthèse, capacité d'absorption. Cela nécessite peut-être la formation de ces derniers. Y a-t-il des dispositions que la banque a prévues à cet effet?
If I heard the question correctly, our interventions don't only depend on us, but also on our clients. And as to whether we have trained or we have measures in place to train our clients to be able to absorb. Okay. Thank you very much. So the strategic plan, as presented, you remember that every time I said we're looking at sustainability, we looked at internal sustainability and external as well. Anytime I talked about growth, we're looking at internal growth and external growth as well. So what that means is that we are not just looking at ourselves as a bank, but we are also looking at our clients, helping build their capacity to be able to absorb and to be consistent with the framework we have set for ourselves. So we have a number of interventions going forward. Apart from business advisory services, which we provide to our clients, the bank has some targeted programs, which we started in the previous strategic plan period, to ensure that our clients are up to speed with our operations as a bank, and they are also able to run with us. One key thing is the West African Development Outlook, which we started publishing in 2021. It looks at the economic aspirations of our member states, performance over the past year, and then we do a projection over the next 2-year period, which also more or less guides how the strategic plan is going to evolve. Again, we have the various webinar series, which is spearheaded by the communication unit, where topical issues are discussed over the period. I think last month we did one on the private sector, which also brings our clients up to speed with what the bank requires for them to be able to access loans. So it also helps them to understand our operations, and it also guides them as to where we want to go going forward. We also have what we call the ECOWAS Investment Forum, the first one of which was organized in 2024, the next one of which will be organized next year. We bring together various stakeholders, governments, industry players, captains of industry, DFIs, and other financiers. We come together to discuss topical issues. We have deal rooms where they are able to go, and we do matchmaking, and they present their issues. We have people on site to help them to address those issues. We also are able to sign deals at such fora. So we are bringing together financiers and project promoters under one roof to ensure that we are able to explain to them what the bank does and ways by which they can also access our resources. So beyond financing, we are doing a lot to ensure that our clients and potential clients understand the bank as a business and to be able to walk in step with us. Thank you.
Merci, Dr. Ascenso. Nous avons de plus en plus de questions, donc on va avancer. Which key sectors are expected to receive priority attention under the GRO strategy? And why are they critical for regional developments?
Please come again. Please come again. The question again.
Which key sectors are expected to receive priority attention under the GRO strategy? And why are they critical for regional developments?
Thank you very much. I think I mentioned quite a few. I mentioned that the focus is on the private sector, and we are committing about 63% of our resources going forward to the private sector. SME is going to play a key role in that. They will attract no less than 27% of all commitments. And it's key because we have a huge population of our youth being unemployed. And the government sectors in our sub-region, in our countries, are saturated. There is only a limited number of people that they can employ. So there is a need for the private sector to step up and absorb the many people that are leaving the universities and the senior high schools. And we think that SMEs, which are a critical part of the private sector, can play a very, very unique role in this regard. That is why we are devoting a huge amount to that sector. You cannot achieve economic growth and development without developing infrastructure. And that is why we are also not letting go of the public sector. We are going to be heavily involved in infrastructure development going forward to ensure that the infrastructure that are developed in the public sector become an enabler to private sector transformation and growth. So we are tackling many sectors of the economy, but we are devoting a lot more resources to the private sector, infrastructure, and ESG going forward. Thank you.
Next question, how can optimization of resources and operation enhance EBID's development impact and institutional effectiveness?
in many ways. So we are looking at ensuring that we reduce inefficiencies, and we are looking at a number of things. One, reduce the turnaround time to be able to move at speed. The truth is, we are competing with a number of financial institutions, commercial, DFIs, and the like. As we speak today, EBID's financing, source of financing is a bit high. The cost of funds is a bit high because of our rating. And if you take a look at an entity like AFDB, which is AAA rated and is able to source financing at a cheaper rate and so on and so forth, you cannot go neck and neck against them. But what you can do is to do what they are not able to do, which is being able to move at speed. Because we are a smaller institution and our focus is on a smaller region, we are able to move much quicker than an institution like AFDB. So where our weaknesses are, we focus on addressing them, and where our strengths are, we strengthen them. And I think that agility is very, very important. So being able to move at speed, reducing the time it takes for clients to apply for loans and the time for disbursement is very, very critical. And that is something that we are going to focus on. Again, diversifying our resource mobilization, areas. That is moving beyond regular or conventional financing to ESG financing. Thankfully, we have been able to access the GCF framework. We were accredited last year, which enables us to be able to source ESG resources much quicker. Some news broke last week that AFDB is coming on board as a non-regional member, and they are giving us a $70 million facility for ESG-related investments. That is positive news, and we seek to do more of this going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Assenso. So we'll continue. The next one, la prochaine question vient de Diomandé. Quelles sont les ambitions de la BIDC dans ce nouveau plan stratégique pour le secteur des intrants agricoles, notamment celui des engrais?
Thank you very much. We are seeking to invest about 330 million UA in agri and agro-industry, which translates to more than $400 million. What we seek to do is to attack every level of the agricultural value chain, from seeds to fertilizers, to harvesting, to warehousing, and to commercialization. So that means that at every stage, where need be, we are prepared to invest. Over the past strategic plan period, we procured fertilizers for some clients, and we will seek to do same going forward to ensure that agriculture is really boosted in the sub-region. Thank you.
So the next question, with the overwhelming achievement of your targets by over 50 to 60%, do you think the bank understated its potential in setting these targets?
Okay, so that's related to the previous strategic plan, which is about 88.7% achievement.
Exactement.
Yes, so I wouldn't say that we understated our targets, because a number of things happened between 2021 and 2025. If you would remember, the height of COVID was in 2021, even though it started in 2020. With the border closures and all those measures that were rolled out by the authorities, it was only a matter of time that we could realize that the impact was going to be massive. So when you are developing a plan, you need to take into consideration all of these factors. What we did midstream, or even before midstream, was to look at ways by which we could circumvent the COVID impact. And one of the key things we did was to do scale investments, doing 50 million and above. That helped us a lot. Number two, the Russia-Ukraine war, which started in 2022. What this did was to present an economic setback to all of our member states. The exchange rates in Ghana, Nigeria, which are the key, which command about 60% of the sub-regional GDP, plummeted. And that meant that Ghana and Nigeria became a no-go area of a sort because the exchange rate was not stable. And with Ghana having to undergo a debt restructuring program, that place was closed basically. So we needed to reinvent ourselves to look at other areas. That is why we ventured into Cote d'Ivoire strongly, and then we did a lot of business there. Again, if you would remember, in 2024, the AES decided to exit ECOWAS. That also has a massive impact on the business because we needed to understand the extent to which this would impact our business. That meant that for the rest of the period, we had to tread cautiously in investing in the AES. So that also has an impact on business expansion. So when you are doing a revision to a strategic plan, all these need to be considered. However, once all these had been done, all the risks had been assessed and weighed, we also thankfully were able to understand that there were opportunities which we could take advantage of. Opportunities opened in Nigeria, which thankfully the operations people explored and attacked. Opportunities opened in Cote d'Ivoire again, which were explored and attacked. So it's not really a question of you understating your targets, but it's a question of how you reinvent yourself in the face of challenges to overcome the challenges that you are confronted with. And I think what we did was to do a very good job over this period. When you compare Strategy 2025 to the one before, you realize that the leap was much bigger than between the previous one before that and the one before that. However, that plan, which terminated in 2020, achieved less than 65% of targets. So it is the agility, the resilience, and the strong leadership we had over the past 5 years, which have helped us to achieve what we were able to achieve over the period. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Asaso. So the next question is looking ahead to 2030, what indicators or hard outcomes would demonstrate that the GRO strategy has been successfully implemented?
Thank you. I think I mentioned some of them in my presentation. One would be to achieve investment grade rating, that is BBB minus or Baa2, Baa3, and that we are very much focused on, because once we are able to do that, it will unlock cheaper resources for us, and we will be able to in turn lend to our clients at a cheaper rate than we are currently doing. The other thing is to invest in the member states to ensure that women become central, the youth become central. We have a target of about 8 businesses owned by people under 40 years being the focus of our business. We are also looking at growing the balance sheet and growing the loan book over a period of time, ensuring that we are able to mobilize resources cheaply and to be able to lend to our clients over the period in the same manner. So when you look at the appendix of the strategic plan, some of these targets have been outlined, and also in the M&E framework, you'll see that some of these frameworks and targets have been outlined, and we are looking very intently at them to ensure that we are able to do it without necessarily neglecting ESG, the ESG framework. Thank you.
Thank you. What role does private sector development play in achieving the objectives of the GRO strategy?
As I said earlier on, we are allocating about 63% of all commitments to the private sector as the engine of growth. So we do a number of things. We do direct financing and indirect financing. For example, for SMEs, we do indirect financing, and we pass them through local commercial banks. So they are key. Local commercial banks are key to this strategy. Number two, the private sector being able and ready to receive the kind of financing that we have, and to be able to implement their strategy in such a way that they are able to grow and meet their own targets and ambitions, and to be able to repay the monies that they borrowed from us are also very, very key. So the private sector is key in this regard. Thank you.
Merci, Dr. Ascenso. Je rappelle à tous qu'il nous reste à peu près 13 minutes pour le webinaire, donc n'hésitez pas à continuer à inscrire vos questions pour qu'on puisse les adresser. Donc, la prochaine question est la suivante. Comment la stratégie GRO s'adapte-t-elle aux spécificités des différents États membres?
When you take a look at the strategic plan, chapters 1 and 2, chapter 1 especially does a review of the economic performance of the globe, the region, and the sub-region. That is all the member states. And that is critical because you need to understand the context within which you operate as a bank. We look at GDP growth, inflation, current account balance, and so on and so forth, because these are elements that show promise or potential going forward, and then also their ability to repay the loans that are advanced to them, because GDP is an indicator of growth, for example. So that is one. Chapter 2 looks at the developmental challenges of the sub-region as a whole, where we identify the gaps that exist in our member states, which also guide how we are supposed to intervene as a bank. So we need to understand the context within which we operate as a bank, and that I think we do. And having understood that, then we fashion out a framework which seeks to address those challenges. And that is why I said that we are combining three elements. We are looking at growth or expansion, efficiency, and resilience. All put together, we are looking at how we can help our member states overcome the challenges which confront them individually. And that is why we are investing in the sectors that matter, high impact sectors and social sectors as well. Thank you.
Merci, Dr. Ascenso. La prochaine question. What measures or strategies do you have in place for a watertight
Please ask the question
implementation
again.
of this plan, considering differential policies and sudden policy changes?
Please, can you take it again?
Okay. What measures or strategies do you have in place for a watertight? I don't know how to pronounce it.
Watertight.
TIGHT.
Watertight.
Implementation of this plan, considering differential policies and sudden policy changes.
Thank you very much. I think that when I was explaining how Strategy 2025 evolved, I listed a number of challenges we were confronted with: COVID, the impact of the Russia-Ukraine war, and more recently, the war in the Middle East and so on and so forth. And the AES, for example. We have adapted the strategy in such a way that we are investing in the growth pools of member states. We are building resilience as a bank to be able to withstand shocks. One, financial buffers are going to be improved over time. When you look at the monitoring and evaluation framework, you will see what our targets are. Two, we have improved our risk framework to ensure that we are able to spot risks even before they emerge, and we are going to do more in that regard. This is in light of the fact that we are going to focus a lot more on the private sector. So you also need to be able to understand the risks that are involved in private sector financing. Beyond this, we are going to develop country strategies for each of our member states, which will be aligned with the overall strategic plan. And with this, we are going to be working with the country authorities to look at the priority areas, where they want to go, and how they fit into our operations going forward. And this will guide our interventions over the next 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Asanso. In what ways can the GRO strategy strengthen EBID's role as a catalyst for sustainable development and regional integration in West Africa?
Thank you very much. So we are doing a number of interventions. By way of ESG, like I said, we have achieved the GCF certification, so we are able to mobilize GSS funding at this stage from various sources. Even beyond this, we did a GSS bond issuance in the UMA market, I think 2 years ago, and we are going to do same going forward. We just received $70 million from the AFDB for ESG financing. We received 100 million euros from the EIB, European Investment Bank, for ESG financing. So what we've done over the past 3 to 4 years is to demonstrate that we are able to mobilize ESG resources. What we have to do going forward is to deploy them to bankable projects within the sub-region. And that is a task that the operations department know all too well, that we need to be able to find outlets for these resources to be dispersed. So we'll do a lot of solar projects going forward. We will do pro-women business financing going forward. And we will continue to also expand in the area of water provision and rural electrification to ensure that growth is not just limited to the city centers, but also it permeates into the rural areas as well. Thank you.
The last question, what measures should be used to assess the successful implementation of the... Oh, I think we already answered that question, but let me finish. What measures should be used to assess the successful implementation of the GRO strategy across the organization?
So it is by way of assessing the targets that we set for ourselves and to see where we stand at the end of the period. Were we able to do a minimum of 41% ESG financing, for example? If yes, then that's a success. If no, then that's a problem. Would we be able to achieve investment grade rating to be able to access cheaper resources for interventions? That is an assessment that we need to do for ourselves. Have we been able to lift many people out of poverty by way of our interventions? That is an assessment that we need to do. So we have a framework to help us assess the targets, each of the targets that we have outlined in the strategic plan. Thank you.
Merci, Dr. Assenso. Donc, merci à toutes et à tous pour la qualité de vos questions. Nous sommes au terme donc de cette session de questions-réponses qui nous a permis d'approfondir les différents axes de la stratégie GRO et d'illustrer tout son potentiel pour notre région. Avant de clore ce webinaire, j'ai le plaisir d'inviter une nouvelle fois Dr. Assenso à nous adresser quelques mots de conclusion. Dr. Assenso, vous avez la parole, s'il vous plaît.
Thank you very much, Anita. So the achievement of the GRO strategy going forward is going to be a collective effort. It is not just about what we can bring to ourselves as a bank, but how we can build ourselves to withstand the shocks that confront us. Like this year, crude oil prices went as high as $115 per barrel. It's beginning to come down, but we are not out of the woods yet. All these have an impact on us because it could drive up inflation, which could also drive up the cost of funds when the central banks begin to increase their policy rates. So as a collective, every single one of us, employees of the bank, employees of the bank, and our stakeholders need to ensure that we work towards achieving all the objectives that we have outlined in the strategic plan going forward. It is growth, resilience, and optimization. And in the end, we seek to create enduring stakeholder value. Thank you very much.